Okay, so I actually set those first set of keys on the wrong joints. I did it on the metacarpals instead of the first knuckle joints. So I'm going to undo. So it said set driven key. I undid it. Okay, so I need to select actually the SDK2 joint for each joint chain. Oh, and leave out the thumb. Okay, so I've got 4 selected. And I'll click key. Okay. Now I need to actually adjust the spread attribute to -10. And I'm going to move all the fingers in so that they would be touching one another. And I actually like to exaggerate this a little bit so that -10 actually makes them interpenetrate a little bit. That way the animator can do, have exaggerated motion without any extra effort. Okay, so with those joints selected, again, I'm going to select the index joint only at first. I'm going to move it in to the middle finger. The middle finger doesn't really move much when it's spread. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and key that one. And then we'll do the pinky and the ring finger. Bring them in. And you'll see that the pinky actually needs to move quite a bit. And make sure I have them both selected. And then select key. Now my spread should be working. Okay, so they do come in. Now I need to go to the +10 and fan them out. Okay, so with the pinky SDK2 and the ring SDK2 selected, I'm going to rotate them out. Pinky needs to fan out even more than the ring. And again, we want to plan for exaggerated motion because, well, depending on your production that you're working for, if you're working in a feature animation, then it's always exaggerated. You're not worried about reality. You're worried about what's beyond reality. If you were working in special effects, then you may actually want to do something more realistic. The animator can't do something that's not possible. But I would suspect even then you would want it to go beyond a little bit. Okay, so I will key those. Actually, I grabbed the wrong one. Undo that. And we reposition the pinky again. Had the ring SDK3 selected earlier. I need the SDK2. Okay, with both those selected, key. And then I'll grab the index 2 and spread it out. And the index can actually spread a fair amount. Then we'll key. And you'll notice we didn't really grab the middle finger again. Now, if we look real close, when we spread our fingers, what happens is we actually also rotate our fingers up. It's just natural. Something about how those bones are lined up in there. So, we actually need to, in our spread, and this is our global spread, we probably wouldn't want to do this on the individual finger spread. And we'd make the animator do a little more work on those. But for the global spread of the entire hand, then we want to do this. So we're going to grab the rotate X this time. But first we need to set our spread back to 0. And grab all the SDK2s. we'll deselect the rotate Y, and we'll select the rotate Z, and we'll key it because that's our neutral pose. And then we'll go and we'll change our spread to a -10. And when our fingers come together, we automatically, you don't have to, but it's more natural for the fingers to start to point down just a little bit. So I'm going to mimic that by rotating each of them down. Just a touch. Okay, and we'll key it. We'll select our spread attribute and set it to +10. And this time we're going to rotate them up a little bit. Okay, and we'll key it. Okay, so now I select my spread. There it is in neutral pose. And I can bring the fingers in and they kind of rotate down just a touch. And when I spread them out, they rotate up just a little bit. Okay, so next, we left out the thumb. I like to leave out the thumb when you're doing a spread, and I do the spread on the thumb individually. Then let's set up the fist. Okay, so we need to set our spread back to 0 so we don't mess with it. And then we know that we need to drive the rotate Y of almost all the joints. So we need to get a good fist pose done. So it's all going to be rotate Y, a little bit of, well, actually let's just grab all of our rotates, and we'll grab all of the joints, including the thumb this time. And then we're going to grab all the rotates, and this is our neutral, so when fist is set to 0, and then we'll key. Okay, so you'll notice that if I select the pinky SDK2, it already had set driven keys on it. And so now those attributes have turned yellow. That's okay. All that means is Maya's created an additional node for you that will be controlling those attributes. And you can see what they are here in the inputs, the blend weighted 5 and the blend weighted 6. You don't really need to keep track of them. Maya does a pretty good job of keeping track of those for you. But if you did, this is where they're at, and you can select using your hypergraph inputs outputs editor if it came down to it, which I will show you, I guess, real quick. So there's the blend weighted 5. And you can see that the set driven keys, which are driven by the hand control, go to the set driven keys, into the blend weighted, into the pinky set SDK2 in that scenario. Now, get back to our fist. So the first thing I want to do on the fist is curl all the fingers just about how I think they should be curled to make a fist. So to do this, I'm going to select all the index fingers except for the first one, index joints except for the first one, and I'm going to bend them down. Now when you make a fist, the first knuckle that curls bends the most. It bends about 90 degrees.